Are you wondering about which piece of gear you should purchase next? You don't have a full kit of hiking gear and you're wondering about what you should be buying? Whether you're a beginner, seasoned hiker, or you're looking to replace some gear, stick around. We're going to go through all the gear I wish I'd had sooner, and I've been hiking for 30 years, so let's dive right in. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, let me introduce myself to you new viewers. My name is Mauser, and on this channel, we study and look at all things hiking and outdoor adventure. And today, I'm just going to do a quick review, not a review, just a bit of a reminiscing trip down memory lane about the gear that back in the day, I wish I had bought this stuff sooner to help me out on the trail. So let's get into it. And I'm going to give you 10 items today that I wish I had had sooner when I started my hiking journey. And number one is a single big water bladder. Now, out on the trail these days, I just take one MSR Dromlight bladder. It holds 6 litres of water. It acts as my drink vessel, my water big storage vessel when I'm at camp, and it's just the one thing I take now. I used to take a bladder and a bottle. Sometimes I used to take a bladder and a bladder, like my bigger bladder. These days, I just take one bladder. That is it, with a drinking tube, and I can suck on that while I'm on the track from my big bladder, which can hold 6 litres. So if I know I'm not going to have water for a while, I can get this thing, fill it right up, put it in the pack. I can drink from it while I'm on the track. It's a wonderful thing to have. I really rate it. A lot of people prefer 2 1-litre bottles, something like that, but I just love having the one water vessel, and I wish I had had one back nearly 30 years ago when I started hiking. Wish I'd had something like this. Back then I just carried a drink bottle. Decent pack. Now, back in the day, in the 90s when I was starting my hiking career, I didn't even own a pack. I would borrow my uncle's low alpine pack. I probably destroyed that thing. Sorry, Mark. I think you're probably still using it. It's probably okay. They often broke on the track because some of the packs I borrowed were no good, and I wish I had invested sooner in a decent pack. These days, what I use the Hyperlite Porter. I've kind of embraced the ultralight revolution a little bit. Not too much. I'm not that crazy. But the Hyperlite Porter, which I've reviewed on another video, which you can check out up there. Awesome pack. Love that thing. It only weighs just over 1 kilo. And it has been a godsend to me on my hiking journeys, especially those big trips of up to 10 days. Now, there are heaps of great hiking pack brands out there. None of these brands sponsor me. None of them have anything to do with the channel, but I'm just recommending gear that I find good. And this one, the Hyperlite Porter, is something that myself, 2 of my friends use. We find it really good. It's a great pack. And, I've got Osprey packs. I've had Macpac packs over the years as well. But back in the day when I started out, I didn't have a pack, and I wish I had had one back then of my own. Next up, another thing that probably didn't exist when I started hiking, but that certainly does now, and something that I use every single day, even when I'm at home, is my Garmin Fenix watch. Now, again, I have talked about this on other videos. You can check them out there or somewhere, but this thing, I love my Garmin watch. It tracks my footsteps. It does all that stuff that all modern watches do. But for navigation, I use this thing on the track all the time. Every walk I go on, I preload a route that I create myself in. And you can check that out up there as well, how I create routes with my Garmin. I create a route, put it in my watch, and while we're on the track, I have got this thing on all the time and tracking where I am in relation to the route. If I'm a bit lost, I can see where I'm at. It's a great thing. Wish I'd had one of them back in the day. That would have been awesome. Would have been so good. They're a new thing. They're great. I do a lot of running too, and this thing is fantastic for that as well, especially when you're racing. It is just a really good device to have. And I'm pretty happy to have one these days. Lucky to have one, and it is certainly something I enjoy having out on the track. Number 4 on the list, well, it's one of my favourite bits of gear, and that is my Helinox ground chair. Now, I've had my ground chair for 6 years, got it in 2017, and it's come on every trip. It's fantastic. I know there is one that Helinox make called the Chair Zero. I prefer the ground chair because it's got a square base. It doesn't have the stick legs that sink into the ground like the Chair 1 does. I do know you can get an attachment for the Chair Zero or Chair 1, whatever it's called, but I just prefer the ground chair. It's a great little chair. Haven't ever changed it. It's the one I still take today. People say, what are you taking a chair and a walk for? Well, I'm old. I need to sit down and relax, And the ground chair is fantastic. I love this thing. It comes on every walk. We get them out at lunchtime when we're on the trail. when we're out in the scrub, we pull out our chairs and we sit down, have a nice civilised lunch. Very good way to do things, and it comes to me with every trip. Man, I wish I had had one of them back in the day when I was starting out my career. Even 15 years ago when I'd been hiking for over 10 years, I wish I'd had one of these. That would have been great. When I was a guide, when I was a hiking guide on Tasmania's overland track, that would have been a great thing to pull out at lunch. That would have been impressive to the guests too. They would have loved that. But I just love my ground chair. It comes on every trip, and it'll keep coming on every trip. Number 5 on the list of gear I wish I had had sooner. And number 5 is something that I have talked about again on this channel. Links for all this stuff are below. It is a synthetic jacket for when I'm in camp. Like I've said before, here in Tasmania, it's cold, it's wet, it's often raining, and down is no good in those conditions. It's getting better. It's definitely getting better. This thing I've got on here, a down vest, is, got the treated down that is slightly waterproof. Something like a Nano Air jacket, something like that. Synthetic jackets in Tassie, I love them. I've grown to love them over the last 5-6 years. Now I've got many of them, many jackets. But that is a great thing, and I wish I'd had one of them back in the day. Having said that, I did have my red polar fleece. Loved that thing for years. That was a great jacket. But having one of these, packs down smaller, bit lighter, would have been fantastic. And I actually wish I'd got a synthetic before I started going to the down sort of thing back in 10 years ago. Synthetic would have been nice. Now I've got one. Love it. Comes on every trip. I actually take the Arc'teryx Atom LT. Love that jacket. Wear it all the time, and it comes out with me on most hikes. And man, that would have been good back in the day to have had one of them. Number 6 on the list. Now, I'm going way back. A lot of this stuff is stuff I wish I'd had in the 90s or early 2000s. And the next one is a lightweight stove. Now, believe it or not, until about 2004, I was carrying a Trangia on all my trips. One of those big methylated spirits, white fuel stoves, a Trangia. That's what I took for the first 10 or so years of my hiking career. Took it on every trip. When I headed out on my 26-day Southwest Epic back in the start of 2004, I got an MSR fuel stove, much lighter than the Trangia, and it changed my life. Since then, we've gone down the road of trying different stoves, and now I love the little Pocket Rocket Deluxe by MSR, something like that. I love the Jetboil Minimo. I know these aren't the super lightweight ones. I've got a Toke stove, don't worry. But I just wish I'd had a nicer lightweight stove. I wish I had discovered those other types of stoves a bit earlier. That would have been nice. No offense to the Trangia. Trangia's a good stove, a bit heavy, and it's bulky. These new ones, great. Do your research for stoves. Link down below to a video on stoves. But yeah, that would have been nice too. Now, just quickly cut. This is a few days after I've just recorded all the rest of that video, and I've just realised as I'm going through doing part of the editing process that I left out number 7. So we're going to pop in number 7 here. And number 7, well, how could I forget it? One of the things that I most wish I had had in those early days, I mean, tent was pretty high up there, of course, but the other thing that I really always wanted was an inflatable sleeping pad. Now, trust me, once you experience this piece of luxury, if you've been on the old Blue Foamy, which I've talked about before, then an upgrade to an inflatable sleeping pad is just next level. It is incredible. I've had one since around 2004. Again, when I went on that epic trip, I invested in a good sleep pad. I was going to be out there for nearly a month, and I ended up buying this thing, which I've spoken about before, the Thermarest 3/4 length mat. That was a game changer for me. I was able to sleep well, and I can't believe I went with a Blue Foamy for about 10 years before I got that thing. How did I do it? I don't know. I was a lot fitter, a lot younger, I guess, and just sitting on that much foam to keep me warm and comfortable in my sleeping bag. I'd go on 10-day trips with a Blue Foamy. I mean, that's crazy. And I certainly do wish I'd had one of them sooner. I borrowed one off someone once and tried that out and thought, I have to get one of these one day. The day I did, I never looked back. I've only ever been on stuff like that ever since. You can check out that video below. But yeah, that's number 7. Now back to your regular programming. And on to number 8. Number 8. Now, this may seem like a funny one. Back in the day, like I said, I didn't have a pack. I had to borrow a pack. One other key bit of gear I had to borrow was a tent. I didn't have a tent for maybe 10 years of my hiking career. I was a poor uni student, and I would have to borrow a tent off mates every time I wanted to go hiking. I would be round at friends of friends' house going, oh, do you reckon I could borrow your tent today, please, to get on a hike? And they'd be very kind, they'd lend me a tent. Then around 2002 or 3, something like that, I finally got a tent. Mum and Dad helped me out with a tent. One Christmas, I was over the moon. I had my own tent, got a Terra Nova Prairie, it was called, the tent I had. And that was awesome. Man, I wish I'd had one sooner because I would have done a lot more hiking. Sometimes I couldn't go hiking because I didn't have a tent. So take it for granted. If you've got a tent, very nice. I've got lots of tents now. Very appreciative of that. But back in the day, I didn't have one. And I wish I had made the purchase sooner. Didn't have Gumtree, I didn't have eBay, didn't have Amazon back then to find stuff like this. And you would have to go to your local hiking store and buy a tent, and they were quite expensive. I always wanted a Macpac Olympus back in those days. That was my dream tent, but they were like $1,000. There's no way that was happening. That would have been nice to have had a tent a little bit sooner, but there you go. That's history. But just thought I'd put on the list because, they were the days when you didn't own a tent or a pack and you loved hiking. Yeah, I was a uni student. I spent my money elsewhere. Anyway, we move on to number 9. And number 9, I talk about these often, and I'm going to stop talking about them soon, but they're just so good. And that is my Temrez glove. Now, I can't even find an affiliate links. A lot of the links you click on below are affiliate links. I cannot find one for Temrez, but I'll keep talking about them till the cows come home. They are the best gloves that I have used. They are awesome. They come on every single trip. I won't say too much about them on this video. You can check out the link below or up there or somewhere to the Temrez video on Temrez gloves, the video on the Temrez gloves. You can check that out. They're awesome. And if I ever find a better link somewhere in Australia that sells them, I'm actually thinking of bringing them into Australia myself because I've got business connections that I can create a website and sell Temrez in Australia. Would you buy the Temrez in Australia? Leave a comment below if you would, and I'll think about getting some in so they're cheaper for everyone. At the moment, if you buy them in from the States, they're quite expensive after shipping and stuff. It ends up being over $100, but they're a great glove. If you can get your hands on some, literally, I recommend them, as do all my friends. We've all got them. And yeah, that's the Temrez gloves. And finally, the last thing I wish I'd had a bit sooner would be a Garmin InReach satellite messenger. I went into that on a video very recently. You can check that out below too, but it is just a great device. The Mini 2 is an awesome little device, the Garmin InReach Mini 2. I had the Garmin InReach Explorer Plus before. Both devices great. Before that, I'd tried everything from spot trackers to sat phones to sat Wi-Fi messenger device things, and this is by far the easiest, the cheapest in terms of ongoing cost. It's great. I wish I had one of them sooner back in the day. They haven't been around that long, less than 8 years, I guess, but they were awesome. Back in the day, I used to have to go and hire a EPIRB, an emergency position indication something beacon. I used to go and hire one of them. This is so much easier. It's great, works well, and it's certainly something, if you're doing regular hiking, you should have in your kit, and it would probably be top of my list after a tent, a pack, a sleeping bag, and a good raincoat is what I'd be investing in. But yeah, there you go. There is my 10 items that I wish I had had sooner. So there you have it, a quick video today. Just a bit of reminiscing for me, thinking back in the day when I didn't have all this gear and what I wish I had had back then. Get into the conversation. Leave it down below. Tell me, what gear do you wish you'd had sooner? Give me some good ideas here. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment down below. You can also sign up to the newsletter down below. Monthly newsletter comes out every month at some stage during the month. Sign up for that down below too. And also don't forget to like. Please subscribe if you like the video. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, tell your friends, share the video. And I will see you on the next one. And we're going to get into, very soon, we're going to get into some navigation videos about what apps and stuff I use there. Been a big request for that. We're going to do that soon. We'll talk about that. But until then, I will see you out on the trail, or I will see you back here next time. Until then, have a great day, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.